Hey friends, and welcome back to Path of Exile 2 for my Day 2 update video. Now, since the last stream, I've done a couple of things off stream, but the biggest deals today are we've got a cast on Minion death set up, and we used to have Flame Wall in there, but now we have our Firestorm on there. So we now have Firestorm. It is now semi-automated. We aren't at cast on crit yet. We won't be there for 20 or so more levels, but we've got to start. So that's what we've got going on there. We're still using Ember Fusillade for most of our manual casting, and we've added on Mana Flare so that we get a Mana Flare on critical hit. Now this does take a significant chunk of our mana, so we've readjusted the tree a little bit for that and for a boss fight that I was really struggling with. I'm probably going to show it in this video. So it was a rough one. We have Raging Spirits, and they have Infernal Legion and Minion Instability, and that makes our cast on Minion Death go off, so that's triggering our Firestorm, which is awesome. And then we have a second cast on Minion Death that I'm not using currently. I had Flame Wall in there, but I think I'd rather manually cast Flame Wall for now, because it's going to be better for our mana cost overall. Something we could do here is set up a second storm, and I might do that later. And I think that's about it. We also have Blasphemy. I've set up Blasphemy support with Flammability just to have that more often. I needed the DPS boost on that boss I was struggling with earlier. And I think that's it. Vitality and Clarity we have on Life Remnants, and we have a Scepter and Wand set up now as opposed to the Staff we had yesterday, and we want that for Malice. And the extra Spirit it gives us. The wand I have is not great. It's just a +2 all fire spell levels. I really like something better, but I haven't found anything, so we're sticking with this for now. Our scepter is okay. Really all we're looking for here is increased spirit, because most of the other stuff that we can get don't really help us. We definitely want malice. That increases our chance to crit, which is super important early on before we get the base crit increase. I'm probably still going to use it after that, but for now it's really helping. The rest of our gear we just upgrade as we go. We want life, we want resistances. I found a prismatic ring, crafted a little bit on it, and it's got 10% all, so we are using it. I found a solar amulet that has spirit, and I got some life on it, so great. But really, again, life and resistance is what we're looking for. This 13 spirit isn't actually doing me much good because I'm not using it. And I think that covers our gearing progression from yesterday. So we're most of the way through Act 3. I've stopped a couple of times, and we've been taking our time just trying to search through every little thing. So taking a look at Act 3, we've gotten most of the bosses down, and something that I didn't know yesterday is there is this above or below ground, which is super important because it seems like above I've got all of the bosses taken care of for Act 3, but if you click this you can see that I'm actually missing this boss. So I need to go fight this boss before I move on too much further. So we'll be doing that first thing when I start stream, is Blackjaw the Remnant. This boss is the one I was struggling with, is the Molten, the Forge Master in the Molten Vault. So I'll show that in a bit. But essentially this fight has a hard time limit. Once you reach the end of the arena, because the arena is a moving track, once you reach the end of the arena, you're pretty much just gonna lose. So you have to take down the boss before you hit the end of the arena. I did it, but just barely, and I died so many times. I think it had something like 45 deaths before I started spamming that boss, and as you can see, I died a ton. But the boss taught me a lot of interesting things, including how to be more efficient about my mana usage and making sure I was maximizing the DPS. Those are the reasons that I'm not automating Flame Wall right now, because this combination was taking up way too much mana. And then it's also the reason that I put Flammability on Blasphemy, because automating that negative res was actually pretty important and saves me a bunch of mana in fights, because this is a pretty mana hungry spell on its own. And I'd rather spend the spirit than spend the mana. But yeah, that's where that sits. I also changed up my tree a little bit, so I was going over here for all natural, and I changed it up and instead pathed up here and grabbed Touch of the Arcane and these Arcane Surge on critical hits. These helped me sustain my mana a ton in that fight, so if you're having mana issues and you're going for a crit build, grab these. I also sacrificed these to get to that. Again, helped a ton with my mana sustain. I'm probably going to pick these back up and pick these back up as well. But so far, I'm pretty happy with what we've got going on. Plan today is to path down here and I think eventually try to reach Bloodmage. I think Bloodmage is just going to be the right call for us. And on the way there, there's a ton of crit stuff and this life wheel right here, or this fire wheel right here that we're going to pick up. So yeah, that's the plan. We've also got some AoE. Yeah, overall a pretty nice path to follow. Some pretty good stuff on the way for us. So that's the plan for today. We should be finishing up Act 3 pretty quickly, and then we'll move on into Cruel. So, should be a lot of fun today. Oh, one thing I forgot to mention. I also ascended a second time. And for this ascension, I didn't take the crit damage. I instead took Vitality Siphon. The reason I did this is I was struggling to keep my life up. And so I wanted to take this instead to see if it would help sustain my life. It seems like it's been working, so I might keep it for now. I might switch it later. I'm not sure yet. If I can find the leech somewhere else, I will do that instead. But for now, that's working for me. So a couple of things I wanted to say about this boss. Again, I was struggling because I was messing around with the configuration of all my skills and seeing what worked, what didn't, how I could sustain through the fight, because a lot of my issue wasn't necessarily just damage. It was keeping my damage output up while I was struggling with mana. So if I'd run out of mana, my DPS seems okay on paper, but if I'm out of mana, I can't cast, which means I'm not doing damage. So what I needed to do was figure out a way to sustain mana. So a couple of things I did is, like I said earlier, switch around my stuff so that I'm manually casting stuff like Flame Wall, so I can control that better and I can handle the mana expenditure. And then another thing I did is, right now I've got Mana Flare on Ember Fusillade. I took that off during that fight. And the reason I took that off is that skill is super nice most of the time when I'm not having mana issues, but it takes 20% of your mana and adds it as extra fire damage. Again, super cool, but if you're having issues with mana, then it becomes an issue rather quickly. That covers the update for today. Still need to work a lot on my gear. I think my gear is not great right now, especially my wand. So, wand is what I'm going to be looking up for today, and that should help a ton with the build. And then, yeah, just making my way through the end of the campaign and into the Cruel version. So if you want to join me today on stream, check out the link below. Be sure to like and subscribe if you like the content and want to see how this character goes. Today we should be able to get, hopefully, up to where we can start casting on crit, but we'll see how that goes. And that'll do it for today's update. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time.